Bobby Sanford. She's one of that inspired when you.
That's good. Well, good morning, everyone. Let me thank you for being with us again this morning. It's an honor, obviously, for me to be here, and I'm just so appreciative of all of those that we have with us today. I want to take just a moment to recognize some of these folks. One of my floor leaders, Representative Josh Bonner, who will be carrying the bills with us today. Representative Montaham's with us, Senator Emmanuel Jones, Representative Billy Mitchell, Sheriff Labatt, GBI Director Vic Reynolds, Colonel Wright from the Department of Public Safety and the State Patrol, and other members of his team, our DNR Commissioner Mark Williams with Colonel Bernard from Natural Resources. We have the Fulton County Police Chief Mark Solborski. I hope I got that right, Chief. I'll call you Chief Mark. Deputy Chief Popham, and other great leaders in law enforcement that are here with us today. As you all know, in recent months, we've all watched in horror as crime has skyrocketed here in our capital city. Every neighborhood has been threatened. Shopping malls have become places of anarchy at times, and our streets, highways, and parking lots have become a free-for-all speedway for criminals. All the while, our heroes in law enforcement, like Sheriff Labatt, have been working tirelessly to contain the lawlessness and keep their fellow Georgians safe. And I want to take just a moment to thank the Sheriff for partnering with us to organize a great meeting we had at the Governor's Mansion with the Fulton County Police Chiefs, the whole state government law enforcement team, many of those that are standing with me today and others that are not, to talk about how we could assist law enforcement in restoring order in our streets. And one of the key issues we knew we needed to get to work on was reckless street racing and stunt driving that I mentioned. That is why today my administration is rolling out HB 534, anti-street racing legislation that will toughen penalties for offenders, hold those who promote these activities accountable, and keep our streets safe through modernizing our code to include these popular activities that put Georgians in harm's way. I've said many times throughout my tenure in state government that one of the most fundamental obligations we have as state leaders is to keep our children, loved ones, and our fellow Georgians safe. Throughout my first 2 years in office, we have taken historic measures to hold bad actors accountable by implementing anti-gang task force, cracking down on perpetrators of human trafficking with the great help and leadership of our First Lady, Brian Kemp, and standing with our men and women in law enforcement. This legislation will help us build on that commitment. And I know many of the legislators in the General Assembly, like those that are standing behind me today, care deeply about this issue, and we are looking forward to working with them through this process. I want to thank them for their hard work, especially Senator Emmanuel Jones, who's been working on this issue tirelessly, and I know that by working together alongside our heroes in public safety, we can secure a safer future for our families, for our children, and for our neighbors. Thank you for being here today, and God bless.
Check, 1, 2, 3. So we can hear you properly here.
Yeah.
All right. You'll look at me the whole time.
Okay.
You could say and spell your first and last name and what district you represent.
It's Josh Bonner, Bonner. I represent House District 72, which is Peachtree City, Brooks, Sonoy, and City of Harrelson.
All right. And you, let me get this straight. You are basically acting on the governor's behalf, putting forth this House Bill 534 to crack down on street racing?
That's correct. As a governor's floor leader, we are tasked with helping to carry the legislation that furthers the governor's agenda.
And basically, can you break down some of the most important notables in this House bill and how it would effectually aim to crack down on it?
Sure. Well, as the governor mentioned, this was an issue that has certainly been very prevalent, especially in the metro area, and the specifics of the legislation were brought forward by our law enforcement community here in the metro area, and so it creates a new penalty for those that actually organize this type of activity, and then also puts a little more teeth into the various violations and the ability of law enforcement to punish those that participate in this activity to help reduce it.
You think that will be an effective deterrent?
Absolutely. And when you talk about, we heard directly from the experts, and we'll hear some of that in testimony in our hearings. And so we truly believe that the feedback directly from those that are charged with enforcing the law has been extremely helpful in actually crafting the law.
How have you been able to work with law enforcement in order to put this bill forward?
So, as the governor mentioned, we were first approached by a law enforcement community here in the metro area to get that conversation started. And they determined that what they needed was actually a change in the law to allow for this additional violation of organizing street racing. And so it came as a result of hearing from the bottom up, not the top down. So we truly believe that with law enforcement's input directly in this, that this will go a long way in helping to reduce this activity.
There's a bill already on the Senate side. Senator Jones has put that forward. How does this bill differ, and why not go with their version?
Sure. I don't know the specifics of Senator Jones's bill. I do know that he has been working on this issue for a while now, and it's certainly going to be a very valuable resource and advocate for us once we get it over to the Senate.
What kind of stories have you heard? How prevalent is street racing, and how dangerous can it be to communities?
Well, so this is not an activity that simply is an individual activity, right? So this goes well beyond the hazards of someone just speeding and potentially running off the road or running into somebody. This is actually an organized activity that has a crowd component to it that gets a lot of people involved. So you're talking about going into communities that are already in some cases overcrowded and putting our citizens at risk by conducting this type of activity. So it's definitely something needed, and I do believe that this legislation is going to go a long way to help curb that.
This would cover the entire state law. What does the timeline look like for getting this to the governor's desk?
So we just dropped the bill yesterday. We expect that we'll have a hearing in the House committee, hopefully this next week. And then I imagine sometime, obviously prior to crossover day, we'll get it over to the Senate. So we expect that it'll move fairly quickly, but certainly we're on a compressed time frame with an awful lot to do before we finish up here.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Appreciate your time. No worries.
Just my mask. I'm sure that's a comment. All right, thank you guys.
Thank you. If we could, Boise. Yeah, if we could squeeze in